Okay, is there anyone here who doesn't like that song? Do you know that I am married to a fellow who likes music a little bit? And he reminded me that this beautiful song from the 1939 movie, The Wizard of Oz, Judy Garland's, it's her signature song, almost didn't make it in the movie. Because at a release, an advance release, they showed the film to the MGM executives, and they decided, oh, we don't need that song. It just drags the movie out. Okay? We never know what Spirit has in store, because one of the guys stood up, one of the producers stood up and said, if the song's out, I'm leaving. And Mayer said this. He said, oh, the fellow said, the song stays or I go. And Mayer replied, let the boys have the damn song. Put it back in the picture, it can't hurt. Well, in 2001, the song was voted by both the National Endowment for the Arts and the Recording Industry Association of America as the #1 song of the century. Why does it have so much meaning? Because it talks about hope and anxiety. It's not just a little girl's song singing up because she doesn't want to be where she is and thinking there's got to be something more. It appeals to everyone because we're all in that place of wondering we have hope, and then there's anxiety, and we want to find out there's got to be something more, and we know there is, but it's not by flying over the rainbow, but just thinking about it, it's good. And we never know what Spirit has in store. I would say another reason that that song is so important is within each and every one of us. You can't see it, but there's a spiritual impulse within us. A spiritual impulse that keeps driving us to know there's something more, and that something more, as we know, is our oneness with life, with God, with goodness. It's in there and it wants to be revealed. But we're on this journey of life, and if we don't activate that power of awareness, and it was that beautiful article this morning, if we don't activate that, we miss all the support we have to keep awakening to something more. You know that my good old boyfriend Rumi, 13th century mystic, he said, humankind is being led along an evolving course. Through this migration of intelligences, and though we may seem to be sleeping, this is it, there's an inner wakefulness. That's that spiritual impulse I was talking about. An inner wakefulness that directs the dream and will eventually startle us back to the truth of who we are. Wake us up to that. Well, it's probably because babies have been in my mind too lately. A new grandma of 3 weeks, which I never thought would happen. I wasn't sure. I've been thinking about things when our kids were little, which I don't always think about. And I remembered that wakefulness. You know, Kirk has been the custodian of the alarm clock for 47 years, okay? He just is. He loves that time. He has a good relationship with time, so that's fine. But we used to, when we were living on Elm Street in Torrance, and our kids were like 5 and 7.5, we'd listen to K-Earth 101. And if you set your clock for 6 a.m., Gary Bryan would go, wake up! Did anybody else hear that? And every morning we turned on, because it had, even though it was the same thing, it brought a smile to our face. Wake up, and we think about that. But then I started thinking, you know, there's something else about that. And we'd also, at dinner, we didn't have cell phones, so we talked out during the day, so I realized how disconnected we weren't. So when we sat down at the dinner table, we had a lot to talk about. Well, Kirk would always share the joke of the day that Gary Bryan would do, you know, shortly after that. And I remember it was Halloween. And I got the girls and I said, what if we try to get a joke on the air for Dad to listen to, and then he could share it? Well, I said, Tara, do you want to do it? And she was 7.5. She says, sure. Well, so we called in and they said, well, I'm sorry, we don't take kids on our joke of the day. And I said, but it's Halloween. And they said, okay. So Tara gets on and Gary Bryan says, okay, what's your joke? And she said, well, do you know why the hippopotamus the elephant sat on the marshmallow? And he said no, so he wouldn't fall in the hot chocolate. So that was the joke. 7.5, we'll forgive her. But on the way to work, Kirk hears the joke and here's Tara from Torrance. And that was the joke of the day, so we got to talk about it. Okay, has nothing to do with my talk, but it was so fun to remember that. It was so fun. All these memories are coming back. So I think with the power of awareness, what we all know is there's levels of consciousness. Consciousness is awareness. And the ultimate illumined consciousness, like Jesus, that consciousness of the mystics and Jesus, is where you so know your oneness with God and life and everything that there is no separation. That's the illumined consciousness that we're all striving for. But then there's the other consciousness, the lower consciousness. Well, I don't think anyone here has that low consciousness, but we're getting there. We're waking up. It's hard though, because this physical world seduces us so much. We so get drawn into the problems and the issues and everything else in this physical world. We forget there's a whole nother world going on, and that's that spiritual impulse. Jesus taught 3 things. It was about, we used to say 2,000 years ago, but it was longer than that, and we're still learning. I want to just think, if we used our power of awareness, which is our mindfulness and our awakeness, to take these 3 things into our life, how much better not only we would be, but the world would be, if we just take these. Number 1, he said that God is all there is, and God is good. God is around us and within us. Remember, the Father and I are one. Okay, if we just could remember that, if we just reminded ourselves on a daily basis. Number 2, he said, there's a power greater than we are, and we're using it all the time, whether we know it or not. He said that by saying, it is done unto you as you believe. If we up-level our beliefs, what we believe is true about the world, about ourselves, if we can make it better, then our world becomes better around us, because we don't see things as it is. When we look at something, it's all conditioned and surrounded and molded by our thoughts and our experiences and our beliefs. And if we're fully present, or if in that scattered mind, it's all, there's only pieces of what we see as reality. It's our illusion. But if we really realize that we can control what we see by what we believe, and if we go back to the first one and say, well, if God is all there is and God is good, that really, no matter what's going on, there's a goodness here. And if we look at life through those eyes, it's going to change everything. And the last thing, and I think this is a question, I get this a lot in classes, because we always talk about goodness and how love heals everything, and the answer to every problem is love, and it's like, how can that be true when all this is going on? This is the other thing, and I think Ernest Holmes explained this really well. He said, of course, Jesus, God, the divine giver, is also the divine forgiver. Forgiveness. Yes, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. And love will finally heal every wound. Now, this is the part we don't say too often. Somehow, sometime, somewhere, here or hereafter, we're on this continual journey. And if we say love heals and heals everything, and you look, well, how can that person have gotten away with that? Or how can that? Love heals. We all wake up. We're just on different paths and different places in our evolutionary process, and we have to believe that so we can understand there's always something more going on. So that's the reason to be awake. And there's other reasons too. When we're asleep, and what did I call that? The cost of living unconsciously. When you were saying, Mary, have you ever driven home and not known how you got there? How often we do that, because our thoughts are just so busy. They're so busy. But there's a price we pay, a toll we pay when we're not present to the gift of this moment. We have limited thinking, and also our thinking gets limited, and we make up limited stories about our life, ourselves, and the world around us. And what I know, because I can remember being in situations like that for myself, is we step into that story, somebody did something to me that made me the way I am, and so everybody should feel sorry for me. Has anybody else been there? I told that story for a long time, and I'm so ashamed of myself. But I know better now. We do better when we know better. But we make these stories up, and they're so hard because there's something so much better we can be telling. And so limited thinking when we're not waking up, because we're on this path of waking up. But to wake up, it means we have to do the work. When you said this morning, Kirk, are you ready to do the work? You're ready, you're here. Because we have work to do. We have to start checking our minds. What's in there? We have to be aware. How am I thinking? How can I be better at what I'm thinking? How can I step up in that? Or we're going to stay in this limited story. And I'll tell you, this limited story doesn't just have effect on us. It does on the people around us, the things around us. We need to start telling better stories about ourselves. You know, if I ask you, who are you right now? What would you say? Probably pretty good stuff, because you guys are good students and learners, and we've all learned better. But we get into those times and places where we don't feel that way, right? Especially when we're getting older. It takes its toll. We start telling stories about that, which don't feel good. They take up too much energy. We can talk about it, but we don't have to live there. Here's what Hafez, my 14th century mystic friend, said. My beloved said, my name is not complete. My name is not complete without yours. I thought, how could a human's worth ever be so much? And God, knowing all our thoughts, and knowing that our thoughts are just innocent steps along the path of our awakening. We do the best we can until we know better. He then addressed my heart and said, I am made whole by your life. Each soul completes me. I am made whole by your life. Each soul completes me. There's no judgment. There's no condemnation. Everybody just the way you are is great and getting better. I know we do our work because we want to be a better example. We want to move up the path. I know that we can only know God from our own experience. We can't know it any different way. And when we become mindful along the path, okay, how many of you didn't know how you got here this morning? To be very honest, I don't know if I did. Because sometimes we're so elsewhere. But when we become mindful, what happens when we become mindful? We find the gift in every moment. And I'll tell you what else happens. Our relationships improve. Our relationships get better. Because we're there for someone else. We're there, present. We become better listeners. And we speak more mindfully when we're aware that we have this wonderful gift. We are like co-partnering with this amazing spirit. And our relationships improve, we become better listeners, our mindful speakers. The world around us becomes an understanding, not a blame, not a pointing the finger, but saying, oh, wow, that's beautiful. That's God's handiwork. Or, oh my gosh, if this isn't God's problem, people here need more love or caring or understand because something is off balance. We get a greater perception about life around us and the life within us. We really start to love the person we're with when we're alone because we know that person is working and doing everything they can to be the best they can be. And that's important. So I'm going to ask this morning if we can do a couple of things to, we've done this before, but I'll just say it anyway. If we can just be in this process of awareness, this interior awareness that is that spiritual impulse. I don't know where you find it. I find it right here in the heart because I know that's where God speaks to all of us. That if we can just know that we take time every day to fill up that place within us to radiate the truth of who we are. The truth, not how we're judged in the outer world by things that everybody else doing the best they can, but in an inner knowing that, right, what we read, that beautiful quote by Hafez, that we are the way life knows itself, God knows itself, an emanation of spirit. And that energy will make us mindful in our day. And I think about how often we go to eat a meal and we're not fully present with that meal, the gifts that have been from the earth, been put together, where it's come from. We can be mindful about that. And we listen. How many of you have a music that you love to listen to you? And you get lost in. Don't you love that? So when things are off, why don't we just, I know, I try to play it when you're not home, Kurt, because I'm not sure. But I love Josh Groban. I love the songs he sings. Every Sunday morning when Kurt leaves, Alexa, play Josh Groban. Because I want to get pumped up by the goodness in what he sings and what he talks about, and I love it all, and it makes me happy. We have to get lost in music. How many of you love your golf games or love your sports and you get lost in those because it's a way your body, we work in your body to be present in the world too with people. Life is such a beautiful experience. Being present for it is so very, very important. And I want us to be able to be there and be present, to know we're part of the whole package. Part of the whole package. And I want to share something that is a good thing to remember, that we test ourselves. How do you know if you're awake and aware? Anybody want to say? Okay, that means you're alive. It doesn't mean you're awake and aware, Court. Sorry about that, buddy. I wish I could say something else. But if you're really awake and aware of all the things, the little sprinkles of things I mentioned this morning, we're kind. We're gentle. We're caring. And at the same time, we feel strong and vibrant and alive. That you got, Court. Good. We know that we can test ourselves because there's ways to know if we're really, am I in alignment? When I talked about blending, am I blending my inner awareness, my spiritual impulse with my body, which, we need to honor these bodies, not worship them. They are the sacred temples of our spirit, our soul. But we need to honor them and connect with that infinite presence of goodness all around us. Are we doing that? You'll know that. And here's what another one of my buddies says, but I won't even tell you who it is because you already know. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. You know the next line, don't go back to sleep. Okay, I'm going to say that line. We got to practice this because it's a good reminder for us all. The secret at dawn, the breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. You were a little iffy on that one, but it's still early. It's only 11:16, but that's all right. You must ask for what you really want. Think about what would have happened if that producer wouldn't have said, if the song goes, I go. He spoke up and asked for what he really wanted. And look what happened. It really changed everything. People are going back and forth across the door sill where the two worlds meet, outer and inner. The door is wide and open. All right, that's what we need to remember, because it's very easy in a world that is very crazy out there. In here, there's a peace and calm we can always tap into, and when we radiate that light, it makes the whole world a brighter place. When you truly have that more awakened consciousness, you see the world as a beneficial gift. You see life as a gift that is here, that we can be in it together, that we can do things not just for ourselves, but we can help make everything better. We can heal, we can prosper, we can become a united energy of goodness. Remember what Hafez said. God said, God said, I am made whole by your life. I am made whole by your life. So when we leave today, I want you to stand strong, stand straight, and say, I want to live, be fully present, give the best I can because I matter. And tell the people around you the same thing, because together we make this world a beautiful place. I want to live, do you? I want to grow, do you? Yes. I want to love, do you? Yes. Good, because I love all of you so much. God bless you. And so it is.